another episode of Horror Movie Night. This is the first episode of Listener Submitted Month.
And I quit.
Oh, no.
Kidding.
And man, are we starting off with a wild one. So let's go to the email real quick. It says, hey guys, I just watched Brain Damage from 1988 for the first time, and what a wild ride. The plot emulates drug addiction. Film has a wildly saturated, cool tones and gross out gore, practical as well as old school CGI effects, and tons of black humor. There's even a basket case cameo for Matt Kelly. If you guys haven't watched or reviewed it yet for Horror Movie Night, I highly recommend that you do so. I think it'd make an interesting, if not squirmy, discussion. I really enjoy your discussions. When I listen to episodes for movies I've never seen, it encourages me to check them out, even if those were movies I'd normally pass up. Thanks for expanding my movie horror horizons, Michelle. So thank you, Michelle. And
thanks, Michelle.
Scott texted me the other day because this is one that... So we covered this way back on Reddit Horror Club early, like probably round 1 or 2 of Reddit Horror Club.
No, dude, I'm pretty sure that you, me, and Adam were already on the podcast together.
Oh, that maybe it was later on. But we covered this on Reddit Horror Club, and I think Scott and I had talked about possibly doing it because it's really the only Henenlotter movie we haven't done.
Yeah, we've done Frankenhooker. Fuck.
Yeah, we've done everything but Bad Biology, and I have no intention of us ever doing Bad Biology.
Nope.
No.
But I was like, my whole argument was that I think that this is too good for us. It's actually a very, like, Henenlotter is a very interesting director, and I think that his movies are some of the best, like, New York grime that's out there. Mm-hmm. But like this movie really feels like an art house film where everything else feels like a grindhouse film. And for years I was like, it's a great movie, we can't do it for the show. But then I was watching, I'm like, why the hell can't we do this for the show? This movie's fucking wild.
I feel like those New York directors that come from that era all have a similar thing where they have like the one that you're talking about. Like Brain Damage is certainly Henenlotter's. I think like Maniac is Lustig's, and
I feel like Maniac is the most New York City of all of them. Like beyond just being Lustig's best. And that's not really, he didn't really do a whole lot of great stuff. Like Henenlotter, I can watch his entire filmography. I mean, even Bad Biology, and I can be into it.
Right.
Because Bad Biology feels like a trauma movie to me.
Bad Biology feels like a Sharknado movie to me, almost. Like it feels like these movies are all of his movies are weird, and all of these movies are in on the joke, but there's always some element of like, you get a vibe that there's some sincerity behind what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't get sincerity out of Bad Biology. Bad Biology feels like...
I've only seen it once.
I've only seen it once also, but it's because it feels... It was like his first movie in like 20 years, and it feels like a man trying to make what people expect his movies to be, and not just what was like coming so naturally to him throughout the 80s. You know what I mean? Like, when he made these 80s films, it was very much pulled from his like warped... dark brain, and then that one felt like fuck. What would they want from it? You know, like it feels like
maybe that's why I always felt very trauma when I think back on it. But I think that you're right though that Henenlotter wasn't trying as hard in the 80s. But I also think that like I did a little reading about Brain Damage, and the thing that kind of clicked with me is, I mean, it's so obviously drug metaphor. Like anybody that doesn't catch that is brain dead. But I feel like it knocks you over the head with it in a great way, not in like a hey you're stupid way, but in kind of like really I have watched this movie many times now. I don't know if I'm at 10, but I'm close to 10 times watching this movie because it's just good. Like
it's pretty. It is a pretty movie to
really
watch at the same
time.
Good
looking movie. Also, the funniest thing. So I'll get to what I was getting at in a second here. But another piece of trivia that I hadn't known before this watch was that Frank Henenlotter did this on 35 instead of 18 millimeter. He appreciated that. Not because it was higher quality, but rather because it was harder to misplace the camera, which I think is one of the funniest pieces of trivia that I've ever found.
That sounds like a New York problem in every sense of the word. Like,
and I feel like maybe this is the first time I've watched this movie since seeing Frank Henenlotter at Creature Feature Weekend 2019, and he did basically a live commentary track for Frankenhooker. And it was amazing to see Frankenhooker on the big screen, because I really, truly do love Frankenhooker. I think that movie is the only exploitation film that I would go to bat for, because it's just so tongue-in-cheek.
Mm-hmm. There's something about... It's so interesting to watch Basket Case, right? Like the original Basket Case. And then you jump ahead to his next movie that's like a full 6 years later. And the way that he worked with a different film stock and a different color, it's almost like a completely different director. Like the look of Brain Damage, Frankenhooker, and even the Basket Case sequels just feel like in such a different league than like the low budget griminess that is the first Basket Case movie. Yeah. And I can't help but wonder, like, there's nothing in between Basket Case to Brain Damage. Like, this has got to be...
There's a lot of coke. He wrote this. He got off of coke, and he wrote this as a metaphor for his addiction to coke.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to get at, and I kind of, in my typical fashion, got off topic. So, but I find that maybe that's what we're getting at. Maybe that's what we're kind of digging towards, is the fact that... So, Basket Case was just kind of like... probably had so much energy put into it and time, because it's his first film and he tried to get it made, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then he had this gap. And then Brain Damage was born from a really dark place, but also a place of like him getting his life under control, which is, well, as much as Frank Henenlotter can, because that dude is amazing and also just so slapstick wild in real life. And then I think that he kind of was... He got that stride for like 4 or 5 movies, whatever it was. And then he took, 15, 20 years off and then he did Bad Biology, and that is basically kind of like a fan service movie. And I get that. He does have a certain level of savant when it comes to writing and directing, because when he's on, he's just untouchably good, in my opinion.
And that's what this is one of those movies. Kyle, was this your first viewing of Brain Damage?
No, this is my second. Okay. And I'm in love with this movie too. In a lot of ways. I think you're right. When Henenlotter's on, he's on, and this is the most consistently on any of his films are for me.
I also want to say it's the most transgressive. Would you agree?
I totally agree. So I totally agree with that, because Frankenhooker is it's tongue in cheek, but this one obviously comes from a more... Frankenhooker feels environmentally driven, while this is personally driven. You know what I mean? It's like it's an experience. And I think of other addiction movies. I think of Requiem for a Dream, right? Yeah. And I'm like, has Aronofsky been addicted to anything? And I think it's a fair depiction of... I think it's a fair depiction and an artistic depiction of addiction, right? There's a lot of addictions here, but I think that it's a great film. But to watch Brain Damage, and it just feels like so New Yorker artist dealing with an addiction, middle to lower class, living in the city, trying to figure it out, like roommates, girlfriend, life. The life that he has is so blank canvas for anybody to paint upon. Like, I think that it's masterful, truly. Like, from an independent film point of view, he has a voice, he has heart and a reason and fear and anxiety. It's got everything that I would imagine addiction being, for then somebody who wants to talk about conquering their own addiction. They don't want to beat somebody. I also think of Shame, Fassbender's Shame, which is its own look at a different type of addiction in my mind, but it's just so heavy. And this is heavy, but you also have Almer. Like, you have, this character.
Without that comedic element, this movie would not be any fun to watch, because really, like, when you watch... Brian is the name of the main character. When you watch him, The thing I love the most about this movie is that, so I've never done hard drugs. I have had my fair share, probably more than my fair share of Doritos in my life. Not as many Doritos as Kyle, and way more Doritos than Matt. But I've never done hard drugs. I have seen other people do hard drugs and been freaked the fuck out about it. And I think that this movie does what I feel like a lot of drug movies have a hard time doing, which is unabashedly making, without putting the shame into it, which is, this is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to put this into words correctly, but ride this with me. When Brian is high, he's having the time of his fucking life, and he looks like an absolute loser, which is what drug addicts look like. And the car
him in the junkyard was exactly what,
yes. He's just screaming. He's seeing colors and lights and having the time of his life, and he looks like an idiot. And I just don't feel like, and granted, I don't gravitate to a lot of drug movies because it's not something that I enjoy. But I don't know how Henenlotter did it, but in this movie, he presented drug addiction in such a pathetic way, but not in a woe is me way, because Brian doesn't see it that way literally the entire movie. He's just having a ball until he ODs.
Till the bitter end. It's still literally to the end. He still is chasing the high, which is crazy. And I think one of the other things that jumped out at me when I was watching this was the simplicity of certain elements of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you know that this movie didn't have a high budget. It had a higher budget than Basket Case for sure, but it didn't have this astronomical
not enough
budget.
to fix the wig.
No,
for the cameo.
Well, it's because he cut his hair shorter after Basket Case, and they had to put a shitty wig on him to get him for that scene. And then I guess Henenlotter told the crew that it was just a Van Halen stand-in or something like that. I don't know. I had a really hard time with that piece of trivia.
I think that there's
funny.
2 Basket Case based cameos in this though, and let me double check.
Are you talking about the woman next door?
The woman that they bang on the door. Yeah, she's the neighbor.
She's in Basket Case too.
And I wonder,
Basket Case as well. Sorry.
As Basket Case as well. It makes me wonder. Obviously, Henenlotter likes using the same actors and actresses. He's like that. But like that combined with the fact that we do have the actual Basket Case character with his basket makes me wonder if she's playing the same character from Basket Case.
Did she survive?
She does. Yeah, she's one of the only survivors in the first Basket Case. So it makes me wonder, like, is this supposed to be happening in that exact same apartment, or like has she moved from one shitty monster apartment into like a whole other shitty monster apartment?
I'm going to say that all of New York City in the 80s was shitty monster apartments.
That's true. That's true. But what I was going to say is, like, with the budget of things, like something as simple but is so effective is like the first time he gets high, where it's just the blue liquid filling up the bedroom. You know what I mean? Like it's such a beautiful and good looking scene that's like,
and that costs nothing to make.
Costs nothing. Yeah. And
that's what I love. And you know what also costs nothing?
It's like windshield wiper fluid. They just bought gallons of windshield wiper fluid and poured it into a bedroom.
They probably found it, dude. They probably didn't buy it. It was probably in the parking lot next door, in the garage that somebody abandoned.
That's just so great. I just love that. And like they had to do they had to cut the scenes with Aylmer because the animatronics were so loud that they couldn't use any of the audio from it, which I just love because it's really the part that struck me the most is when Brian picks Aylmer up for the first time and puts him on the back of his neck. Aylmer's tail is just literally going in a circle, and I'm like, that is such a simple prop. It doesn't I mean, it's only 4 seconds, right? 5 seconds.
It's still an impressive prop.
It's so
Every
good.
time that Elmer's on the screen, I'm like, I love how this thing looks.
Yeah.
And it was voiced by Zachary.
Yeah.
Oh, and for listeners that don't know, Zachary was a late night horror host in the 50s and 60s, and he also did some amazing like 50s horror songs that I have on a million playlists, and I would be more than happy if I remember when this drops to share those Zachary songs. But Zachary is kind of like he's like the male Vampirella, Elvira, like that archetype. Dr. Demento kind of became a Zachary thing, but he was uncredited, which I think is very funny.
He's probably the biggest name in this whole movie.
He is. Zachary is like, don't put my name on this, guys. But I also just love that his voice is so like, hey, Brian. It's so chill, because what else would an immortal alien that eats brains and gets humans high would sound like?
Yeah,
he's not going to sound.
He has to have the most chill in order to get anything done.
Yeah, and going for like a Tommy Chong voice would be like too outrageous and over the top. Like,
that would
it's the
suck,
perfect. It's the perfect voice for it. But no, I think even the puppetry, like be it stop motion or animatronic, like whatever they're doing, just the way he moves, the way his head will like kind of twist and bend, and like. Obviously, the jaw dropping down and revealing like the whole inside of his mouth. It's just
and just the rack focus on the needle tip of the blue fluid coming out. It's the fucking thing is beautiful in the way that I imagine horror fans like us and our listeners really appreciate. You know what I mean? Like, because it's not fucking Terrence Malick beauty. It's not, but it's like. It's just exactly what you want and hope for. And now, oftentimes, what I think of when I think of that era of independent filmmaking, especially now that I've seen it like a second time, right? Like the first time I was like, I loved it and I appreciated it. And like I sung its praises to the people around me. But now seeing it again and like really solidifying that spot in my brain for it is great. It's so solid, and it makes me want to like visit some of, because I haven't seen the Basket Case sequels. I haven't watched Basket Case since.
Oh, Basket Case 2 is the best.
Basket Case 2 is a lot of fun, and it's in
that's Matt's fault that I love it though.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing with Basket Case 2, and this will be a very quick tangent. What Basket Case 2 does really impressively, and the reason why you'll love it, is that it's just a creature effects like
bonanza
show. Yeah, like it's because the concept is that they don't die at the end of Basket Case, and they get taken in by a woman who has a home for all of the disfigured creatures that have been mocked. So it's literally it's barely even a horror movie for the first hour. It's just like a wacky group of misfits living in a house together. But
love it.
The level of practical effects that's going on with every single creature that's roaming inside this house it's literally like if someone tried to do the Star Wars cantina scene, but they had about $100 to do it.
Let's be real. They had $500, all right?
But it's just fun. It's goofy and it's fun. And then like Basket Case 3 is pretty outrageous too.
Yeah, I like it, but it's not 2.
2 is like masterful. And that's like but then there are those moments that are legitimately horrifying in this movie too. Like when he's having that drug dream that he's like ripping all of his brain tissue out of his ear, and it's almost like a magic trick, and then his ear falls off and everything is spewing out of his head. Like the fact that the actor sucks at screaming and it being believable, like beyond that, where he's just like, like it's like something horrific is happening.
That never bothered me. That has never bothered me. His scream has never bothered me in that scene, because I am just awestruck by the gore coming out of his head.
That whole withdrawal to me is when Elmer really gets unnerving. You know, and I guess obviously that's the point, but it's just nice that he's just right. It's just nice that it is so effective, and still the one note of Elmer's like voice and tone. Like Elmer does not waver at all. Like
nope, he doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't get pushy.
No. He doesn't have to. He's done this for hundreds of years. He knows exactly how humans work.
Right.
All it took was one old man's strong grip, though, to bring him down.
This is true.
Man, what a scene.
Even then, though, like the animatronics of him being crushed to death with the eyeballs like kind of pulsating out of its head and stuff, like they went so above and beyond what I thought was capable from like a Henenlotter low budget movie with the way that Elmer actually looks. I also love when he meets Elmer's original owners, and he's like, "You named him Elmer," and he's just like, it's spelled A. However it's spelled, like he gives like the whole spelling. Oh man,
it's a great. This movie's fucking great.
It's so good, and you know, for people that haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a long time, or have seen the cut version, the blowjob scene is so fucking explicit. I'm even shocked after seeing it multiple times. Every single time I watch it, I want to kind of squint and turn away a little bit because it's porn.
It's pornographic for sure.
I am so shocked by that movie scene in modern times. I can only imagine how it went over in 1988. Well, let's say 1980s, 87, 88 when they were shooting it. But the funny thing is that I read up on it, and I guess I can understand. I can imagine how it went over because the entire crew walked off when they shot that scene. Apparently, they could not handle how intense that scene was. I don't know how it got shot, but that scene and the brains coming out of the ear and then the ear falling off were both heavily edited for the original version of this movie. And then
I didn't know that.
And then when they did the home VHS version is when it started to gain a cult following, and that was the uncut version. And I've never seen the cut version, so I've been shocked every single time.
Yeah.
So there's
it's aggressive. It's aggressive as all get out. And
but it's so good. Like
it is good.
I'm not saying that the blowjob scene is bad. I'm saying that it is just very obviously Henenlotter being like, "Let me push the envelope."
Well, and
real hard.
I've just stumbled upon this quote that I want to read that's from Henenlotter. And he says, I never felt like I made horror movies. I always felt like I made exploitation movies. Exploitation films have way more attitude than anything. And it's an attitude that you don't find in a mainstream Hollywood production. They're a little bit ruder. They're a little bit raunchier, but they also are willing to deal with material that most people wouldn't touch, whether it's sex, drugs, or rock and roll. And I feel like that really does like sum up how you can describe almost all these movies, is that they're a little bit raunchier, they're a little bit ruder, but they are touching on material that at the time no one else was talking about.
Yeah, and it doesn't, for me, for me, I appreciate it so much because it doesn't overdo it like something like a Street Trash, which I will continue to not enjoy.
Thank you.
And no, I Street Trash rubs me the wrong way completely, and which is unfortunate because again, like some of the effects in it are really great, like. And then, later on, to some of the trauma stuff, Toxic Avenger, I have a really soft spot for, but I also don't, it doesn't come from the same school of thought that Henenlotter quote comes from for me. Because Lloyd does come from a Hollywood background before he gets into Toxic Avenger. So
he's working on Rocky and
right. He's mixing,
like that.
So I just... So not only is it Henenlotter really wanting to push the envelope, Henenlotter is like Charles Bukowski to me in a lot of ways. He's pushing that envelope, but in a way that doesn't completely turn me off from his work. And I think he's struck the balance because there's actual obvious talent there, and also the ability to sort of like toe the line. That's how that's the first time I've sort of thought about that. So I don't know. That might be raw and not thought through of a comparison.
You can always change your mind in the future. That is the great thing about this podcast. For people that listen to the podcast early, Matt and I have definitely grown in the fucking 7 to 8 years.
I still my opinion on Street Trash has still changed a little bit, but I still think that if you just did a supercut of the 15 minutes of people melting down, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
It's the other 75 minutes of the movie that's that's kind of dragged. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have with this. I mean, go see it. I feel like this is still one of like those like secret movies. You know what I mean?
It does feel that way.
Should be in the Criterion Collection.
No kidding.
I mean, it's definitely one of those ones where even amongst horror fans, like it's not. I don't think it's had the exposure that a lot of the other films have. So if you're listening to this, if Michelle said that she'll check out some of the movies that we talk about, even if it was something she'd never watched, like This is a movie I have no problem recommending to almost anybody because I think that they'll get something out of it.
Totally.
Be it that they like the visuals or that they like the analogy in it or just that they think it's weird and kind of like it's super memorable. You won't forget after you've watched Brain Damage.
You will not.
And Scott, we have to, before we completely wrap up, you did make your own Elmer one time.
It's true. I did. That was Monster Mania 2019, which is ironic that I did that for Spring Mania in 2019, and then I met Henenlotter at Creature Feature Weekend
4 or 5 months later. Yeah,
and I did not bring Elmer with me, which is stupid. But
he would have fucking loved that. He would have signed it. You could have had a signed Elmer.
Man, I guess I'm just gonna have to wait for that guy to come back to another con.
I think my picture with it is like a picture on my Venmo or it's a profile picture somewhere because I fucking love that picture.
That was
and I loved your cosplay. It was great.
I need to remake.
That was a great
Elmer.
weekend.
That was so fun. But I need to remake that Elmer with animatronics inside so that it.
Oh my god! Just the at least the tail.
The tail. I want the jaw to move too. But yeah, like that's.
Oh, yeah.
I still have him, and I would love to remake him in like foam rubber with animatronics. So maybe one day I'll get smart enough to do that.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. I'm Shane O'Hare of the Geekscape Games Podcast, the #1 video game podcast on the Geekscape.network. Join myself, Derek Krenevelt, and a guest every fortnight as we discuss video game news, video game reviews, and dissections. That's Geekscape Games every 2 weeks on Geekscape.net.
Who wants to go first on a double feature on this one?
How about we go week by week? Let's start with Matt, then Brian, or Matt, then we can give Brian one because there are 4 of them. Then Kyle, and then me.
Okay. Mine is the cop-out of all cop-outs, but I'm all about symmetry over here at Horror Movie Night. And just 2 weeks ago for Ginger Snaps 2, my double feature was Brain Damage. So, of course, my double feature for Brain Damage has to be Ginger Snaps 2.
Love it.
Oh, the other addiction allegory. Damn.
Yeah.
Are you guys serious? Was that movie about drugs? All right, Kyle, what do you got for us?
I picked a movie called which I just found on Tubi or Night Flight recently, but it was also a sort of a New York City psych movie called Retribution. By Guy Magar, who ended up doing Stepfather 3 and a bunch of other hell yeah. You're goddamn right. And a bunch of other stuff. But this movie's really great. It's about an artist who attempts suicide and then starts to try to reinstate himself into the apartment complex and such in which he tried to take his life. And it's New York City, it's prostitutes, it's lofts, it's artists, it's that vibe, and it's not Basket Case, which I forgot there was a legit actual fucking cameo in this movie, so my whole double feature leading up to that cameo was Basket Case anyway. And then here we are. But Retribution's really really interesting film.
What era is that, if you don't know the year?
87. So we're talking the same talking the same year. It's just great. It's a really interesting of that time movie. Not as great as Brain Damage, and there's no real allegory or anything, but visually it matches up real nice.
Are you thirsty today? Or?
I am. It's going to disappoint listeners submitted month, and then it might change next week. But currently, I'm not drinking or eating any Doritos. But I did have, if I were to have a drink with this, it would have been a blue raspberry sour that I picked up from Evil Twin.
Oh, perfect! You can have a blueberry smoothie.
I should have just been.
Or just
munching
even
on
get one of those blue raz
Hunter
slushy.
eats so many blueberries. We have a whole fucking.
Well, apparently not, because he eats all your fucking blueberries. Man, I'm never having kids if they're gonna eat all my blueberries.
You don't. Yeah, no. That's like the first thing to go.
I was gonna say I can categorically say that every time I've seen my niece since she's been born, she's either eating chopped up strawberries or blueberries.
Yeah.
That's
some
good parenting, though.
Yeah,
I
we
love watching kids eating some whole foods, vegetables and plants, and some fruit. And for my double feature, I'm gonna go a little bit more modern, just because I knew that we were gonna go more into the grimier stuff. And so I'm going to go with something that feels very, very shiny. This is from 2018. But is still that grimy New York City vibe. Bliss. Did you guys see that movie?
I did.
It's vampirism as an allegory for drug abuse.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great pick. Joe Begas is really... He does his own thing, and he does it really well.
I really enjoyed the movie, but I have no interest in watching it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's shot on 16, I believe, too.
Nice. It looks so good. It looks so good. That really, my takeaway was not just the main actor's performance, because she was amazing, but it was also just it was shot so beautifully, and the colors are so, they're like very drenched. You know, they're vibrant, but it's not like oversaturated. It's a really, whoever did the color correction and the editing is just an absolute master.
Yeah, Bliss is great.
All right, so for what did I watch this week, though, I just want to confirm, because I feel like my brain has been in 1,000 different places. I have not talked about Nope on the show.
No, you have
yet.
not. And
Okay.
do it spoiler free, because I did not get a chance to watch it in theaters.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say about Nope. It's a yep from me. No.
You son of a bitch.
So it's very good. I think it's my least favorite Jordan Peele movie.
Really?
But I think it's the Jordan Peele movie I'm going to watch the most. And the reason why I say that is because, like, I would say that he has not made a movie that I would rank as less than a 4-star film. Like, they are all very good movies. Obviously, Get Out is like the top of the totem pole, and nothing's taking that down. But I think that Get Out and Us are very heavy watches that you have
Agreed.
to like mentally prepare yourself to sit down and watch. Nope is Jordan Peele trying to do a 1980s Steven Spielberg movie, and I love every element of that. Like, and he's kind of been on the record in interviews saying, like, he made this movie because he had read so many articles saying that, like, people aren't going to the movie theaters anymore. They don't really see like a point in that, so he wanted to make something that was like a spectacle that needed to be seen in like a big grand way on a giant screen.
Crap.
Yeah, and that's what he did. Like, as I'm watching that movie, like, I'm not thinking of something like Alien. I'm thinking of something like Jaws or Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Like, it's just got that grandiose element, and it's also, you know, one of my favorite elements in any movie is like making a movie about the joy of making movies with your friends is something I'm always going to love. So like the quick and dirty, without spoiling anything, aspect of the movie is that the brothers and sisters have a long lineage in history in film as the people who like run the training of horses for like any films that use real life horses. Something seems to be going weird specifically on their farm. And then while it still always retains itself being a horror film, the bigger thing is not so much the horror of what's happening on their farm, but the idea of, if we can capture this on video, it will free us from all of the like financial struggles that we're currently in. So it does juggle that balance of being a horror movie, but being a movie about a group of like outcasts with a shared goal coming together to make a movie together. So you're getting like all these different homages to all these different things. So I think it's a really fun movie. That would be my only warning, is like, don't go into it expecting the same level of like brain twisting horror that he's known for, because this is his popcorn movie. Like as much as maybe Us was his Hitchcock movie and Get Out was like his psychological like torture film, this is just a straight up, you're eating popcorn, you're looking at like giant shit, like giant incredible special effects and like a bunch of interesting characters, and you just like don't want anything bad to happen to any of the main characters because you're so in love with like how charming they all are. Like, it's just a fun movie. So high recommend on Nope from me.
Man, I you were holding that in for a while. I fucked up by not seeing it in theaters, but luckily we have a basement theater
Your
set
basement
up,
is as close to a movie theater as I've been in. So
all right, that's a huge plus. Thank you, buddy.
I watched a movie called Resurrection from this year with Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth, and I had watched Reservoir Dogs recently at the beginning of the month because Carly had never seen it. It was not a Tarantino lover, but did not have the experiences to back it up. So she wanted to watch Reservoir Dogs. She really much enjoyed Reservoir Dogs. But altogether, I don't want to talk too much about the movie because I think it's so new, and I don't want to go too into it. It's really great performances by everybody. It feels a little like Michael Haneke and Cronenberg to come together. But
tell me more.
Tim Roth is fucking incredible.
But here's the thing: have you ever seen him do anything that's less than incredible?
I was going to say he is definitely one of the top actors of our generation.
Really, really not. But just seeing the book ending, not book ending, because obviously he had other stuff, but Reservoir Dogs and then into that,
sure,
like pretty close together with however many decades apart, 30 years apart, not 30 decades.
Right, actually.
Fuck. It's just wild. He's amazing. Rebecca Hall is amazing. Resurrection will make you uncomfortable, and it might be a polarizing film, but it's there's no denying their chops, and it's worth checking out. It's available on VOD right now, but I think it's a Hulu or a Prime exclusive, so it might not be that for much longer.
Gotcha. All right, Scott.
Well, and this is coming out in September, obviously, and we're discussing this a couple weeks early, and this is a couple weeks after. I think this is at least a month after I watched the movie, but I loved Prey. It's the Predator sequel.
Yeah.
I was going to say something. I was going to talk about something else, but you mentioned Hulu exclusive, and pretty sure that Prey was a Hulu exclusive. And man, I loved it. And it had nothing to do with the Predator. It had everything to do with the protagonist woman and the fucking dog. I'm not a Predator movie guy, but I mean, and it's nothing against the Predator movies. I've enjoyed them, but I don't go back and watch them. I've seen every one of them once, maybe twice. I've seen the original. I've seen Alien. I've seen Predator. I've seen Predator 2, and I've seen AVP once a piece. Maybe Predator twice, but I don't even think I saw it the whole way through the second time. Might have been like Netflix and chilling it, But yeah. Prey is so my jam. The pacing's awesome. It's got a cool animal in it. I felt like it was a Predator movie after the fact, and that was what really made it shine. I just thought that it was so cool, and I love that they were originally going to only have it in Comanche and then have it dubbed. And there is a Comanche edit, I believe, if you wanted to watch the two different versions. Which I just love that representation. I love filmmakers trying to do something different, especially with such an established franchise that hasn't really succeeded a whole lot. I mean, really, Predator is a standalone. None of the sequels have done really much of anything. I think that Predator 2 is okay. I mean, but
Predator 2 is the one that we're most likely to one day talk about on this podcast.
Right, but I'm saying
it's
like
so outrageous, but it's not.
It is, but it's not. I don't think that financially,
Predator
has ever been like a huge winner. But I think that Prey does an amazing thing where it takes a well-known and loved, like established franchise and does something so wildly different, but I feel like it's exactly what I wanted. It's just a very interesting. I loved it. I think that's so cool that they made it. And I would love for filmmakers to, if you're gonna make a movie in a franchise in 2022 and on, please just make something interesting like this.
Oh man, yeah,
for sure. All right, well, that was the first of 4 listener submitted movies. I would say it's definitely the most artistic.
Yeah, it goes downhill from here.
And what does Newfound Glory say? My friends over. No, I meant all downhill from here.
But we will be back with next week's listener submitted pick. Very excited? ? I mean, Scott brought up Predator. That's a pretty good connective tissue to what we're talking about.
Very close, week, my friends. I should have probably saved Prey for next week's What Did We Watch, but I don't care.
But we'll be back next week with more Horror Movie Night.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.